From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. Official results in South Africa are showing the ruling African National Congress has taken an early lead in the general election. The Election Commission put the ANC ahead with 55% of the votes, with the Democratic Alliance trailing behind with a distant 26%. The Economic Freedom Fighters so far has taken 8% of the votes. Just over a fifth of the voting stations have been tallied. An official winner is expected to be declared on Saturday. The Electoral Commission revealed that there was a 60% voter turnout, 10 points down from the last election. Around 26 million people were registered to cast their ballots at more than 22,000 polling stations. And for the most part, voting went off without problems, but police in Cape Province used rubber bullets and tear gas to disperse residents who attempted to disrupt the polls. It started when people who were boycotting the elections tried to prevent others from voting. In spite of this, the Institute for Security Studies predicted less violence at voting stations compared to the 2014 general elections. President Cyril Ramaphosa reflected on the 1994 election, saying he felt that there was the same excitement amongst voters this year.
This is a vote that reminds us of 1994, because in 1994 our people were just as excited as this, because they were heralding a new period, a new future for our country. And today, this is what I am also picking up.
Let's listen to our correspondent in Johannesburg, Matuba Malaji, with the latest.
So, the most interesting part of the 2019 elections here in South Africa is underway, and that is the vote counting. And so far, about 35% of the vote has been counted, and the African National Congress is leading in 8 of the 9 provinces. The Western Cape is the Democratic Alliance's turf since 2009. The ANC hasn't governed that province since 2009 when President Jacob Zuma came into office. But now the Independent Electoral Commission says all the votes will continue to be trickling into the operations center in Pretoria, where all the numbers will be consolidated, and hopefully in the next 18 hours or so it will be clear who the winner of this election is, both on a parliamentary level and the provincial level. But so far, if polls are anything to go by, the people are saying that the African National Congress will be the winner of the election with under 60% of the vote, which will be a first for the African National Congress since the dawn of democracy. So it looks like they may not get the overwhelming majority they usually get in elections since 1994. Now, another issue that the Independent Electoral Commission will be dealing with today is complaints from political parties. Apparently, there have been complaints that has to do with vote counting and the ink that's been used to show that people have voted, among issues that political parties have raised with the IEC. But the IEC has said that the integrity of the election remains intact. This does not influence the vote counting that's currently underway, but it will meet with political parties on Thursday, and we'll give a report back on how will the complaints be resolved. But so far, vote counting continues with the African National Congress in the lead with just over 35% of the vote being counted. So updates will be coming throughout the day to see how other parties like the Democratic Alliance and the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters, are doing today. And lots of surprises are coming from smaller parties making strides in this very tough, heavily contested election. But we'll keep you posted on those. It's back to you, studio.
Thank you. That was Matuba Matlaji from South Africa. Now, land reform, corruption and unemployment were key issues in this 6th national election since apartheid ended 25 years ago. Our special contributor, Johan Abrahams, has more.
The rain came down in buckets in parts of Cape Town, South Africa this morning as people came out to vote in the national and provincial elections. Most of them saw it as a blessing on the 25 years since the first all-race democratic elections in April 1994. Ayanda Holo travelled more than 1,000 kilometers to vote in the town he grew up in. For him, it was a homecoming laced with nostalgia.
Nyanga East is not only a township and a location, but it's an institution that is filled with history and a clear contribution of sweat and tears and people sacrificing their lives to ensure that one day we enjoy a democratic vote and a democratic and a free society.
But Nyanga is also a town plagued by unemployment and rampant crime and reflects the difficult road facing South Africa despite its great democracy. Holo says if you look beyond the label of violence, it's also a place filled with hope. Those that came to vote share his optimism.
We have never ever given up hope, and we were fortunate enough because we do have a program at the Nyanga Arts Center which is called the Artisan School. The Artisan School teaches arts and culture as part of the curriculum in schools.
More than 26 million South Africans are registered to vote, and 48 political parties are contesting the elections. One of those that came to vote is still seeking justice for her brother that was killed shortly after his return from Robben Island.
We still have not sort of found closure to the assassination of my late brother, Mziwonke Project. Since Pro's death, you know, we were failed by a number of institutions, starting from the TRC.
Despite the hardships, residents of Nyanga, together with fellow South Africans, remain hopeful and continue to keep the dream alive of a better tomorrow. Johan Abrams for Talisur in Nyanga, Cape Town, South Africa.
In other news, Venezuela's Vice President of the National Assembly, Edgar Zambrano, was arrested in Caracas. The President of the National Constituent Assembly, Diosdado Cabello, made the announcement hours after the incident on Wednesday. Zambrano's arrest follows the NCA's decision to strip the immunity of 7 lawmakers who backed the April 30th attempted coup. Charges could be laid against them for conspiracy, treason, and rebellion. And Venezuela's Foreign Minister Jorge Arriaza commented on Zambrano's arrest. He tweeted that those who favor foreign intervention, support violence, and stand in solidarity with the leaders of the attempted coup will be brought to justice under the country's constitution. Venezuela's embassy in Washington, D.C. has been plunged into darkness after U.S. authorities cut power to the building. Water was also shut off. The embassy has been the location for a tense standoff between the Embassy Protection Collective and supporters of U.S.-backed opposition lawmaker Juan Guaidó. As the situation escalated, one activist was arrested while others were injured trying to take food to the protesters inside the building. A tweet was posted showing the president of Veterans for Peace injured by police. The Chinese government has said they are fully prepared to defend their interests in the trade war with the United States. This comes as a Chinese delegation led by Vice Premier Liu He is set to hold talks in Washington to save a trade deal. U.S. officials accused China of backtracking on earlier promises. U.S. President Donald Trump also threatened to increase tariffs on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods, going from 10 to 25% starting from this Friday.
China hopes the United States meets China halfway and resolve problems through dialogue rather than unilateral steps to reach a mutual benefit deal based on mutual respect and treating each other equally. In the meantime, China is fully prepared, determined, and capable of defending its legal rights. Thank you.
And China has also responded to comments regarding its Belt and Road Initiative made by U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Pompeo described the initiative as a, quote, corrupt infrastructure deal in exchange for political influence using bribe-fueled debt trap diplomacy. The Belt and Road Initiative has been a cornerstone program of Chinese President Xi Jinping and his foreign policy.
We have noted the fact that the relevant US person has been singing the same old tune again over the past 2 days. He continues to discredit and attack the Belt and Road Initiative. The US are not tired of saying this, but we are tired of hearing this.
More stories coming up. Don't go away.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
Thank you for joining us again. More than 4,000 public servants have gone on strike in Peru in protest against salary cuts. Workers employed under the National Identification and Marital Status Registry took to the streets on Wednesday in what they called an indefinite strike. They say the government could cut their salaries by up to 40% due to non-compliance with labor laws. Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro has defended the decree he signed on Tuesday, loosening gun-carrying laws. Bolsonaro justified the decree, saying he has only given people what they voted for in the 2005 referendum. That vote was held to decide whether to ban the selling of guns in the country, which people voted against.
About carrying weapons, we can go above the law. We have done all we could do via decree yesterday. We are only fulfilling what the people voted for in the 2005 referendum.
8 former Brazilian environment ministers have condemned President Bolsonaro for backtracking on environmental protection policies.
Each one of us here in different governments of different parties and ideologies contributed to making environmental policies advance, and it is the first time we have a government that has a policy of dismantling everything that has been done and take it so far that it becomes a regression.
There aren't political banners or ideologies. It is about the idea of defending sustainable development, democracy, our society's values, and about the fact that we are convinced that the environment isn't the enemy of a country's development. But more than this, thanks to diplomacy and our technical, scientific, and political qualifications, Brazil has an enormous responsibility and contribution to the world in providing solutions to global problems and climate change.
A report titled The X-Ray of Corruption in Colombia has been presented at the Javeriana University in Bogotá. It's based on journalistic reports between January 2016 and July 2018, and it shows how the country lost billions of dollars due to corruption.
About $5.5 billion were lost due to corruption in Colombia between 2016 and 2018, as the government turned its back on the close to 12 million Colombian citizens who voted in the anti-corruption referendum in August 2018, which sought to make deep reforms to eliminate the phenomenon.
Unfortunately, we have not seen yet any results from the government or the Congress related to these laws to fight against corruption. Several of their proposals do not have any future and are not being discussed currently.
The public sector is mainly affected by corruption in the recruitment process by municipalities, but the private sector is also involved in these practices.
17.9 trillion in total, 8.5 trillion in the mining and energy sectors, 3.4 trillion in education, and 3.3 trillion in the health sector. That is a lot of money.
Cases such as Odebrecht are included in the report by the university in Bogota. It includes practices such as bribes, contract manipulation, and money laundering in electoral campaigns. But corruption in the justice system is also becoming more and more clear.
It is corruption within the justice system. There is manipulation of judges who receive bribes, so they make this or that decision. Unfortunately, even the Supreme Court is involved in these cases.
Experts say the issue has to go beyond the entities of control and justice in order to get fair sentences for the corrupt.
It is important on the part of the citizenry, of course, to have effective control of the institutions that persecute corruption in Colombia. The problem is not the number of institutions that fight against corruption, but how these institutions are run. So it is important that citizens have both eyes on the problem, denouncing and monitoring the situation.
59% of the corruption cases affect fundamental rights, social, cultural, and economic, and 39% of the cases are related to civil and political rights.
Experts from around the world have met in Colombia to discuss new strategies in the war on drugs. Naval authorities from 18 countries, including Brazil, Mexico, and Canada, gather in the Caribbean town of Cartagena to discuss the next phase of Operation Orion. Through this collaboration, the countries have captured almost 400 drug traffickers and most recently seized 94 tons of cocaine over 105 days in international waters.
We're sending a very clear message to the world that in Colombia and in all of its countries, the fight against drug trafficking is a priority and that it will not stop until all the criminal organizations are dismantled.
We now go to the U.S.-Mexico border. Nearly 100,000 migrants were arrested in April, the highest number in the past 6 months. According to data from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, there were almost 9,000 minors among those arrested. Over 460,000 migrants have been arrested since October 2018. This report comes 2 days after 700 migrants were arrested in the state of Arizona. 2 people were killed after a shooting during a demonstration in Mexico City. A man opened fire on a crowd of people who were holding a protest in the south of the capital. One of the victims was a labor union leader. 2 other demonstrators were also injured. The attacker was arrested shortly after the incident. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador says his government is making the fight against corruption a priority. The government has also launched a new plan to stop people from stealing medicine from public institutions.
People who use public healthcare have been complaining about the continued lack of medical supplies and medicines in the clinics and public hospitals across Mexico.
I have to buy a very expensive medicine, but I need it, so I have to buy it, even though my health insurance does not cover it.
In an attempt to figure out the real size of the problem and who is most affected, social organizations have created the platform No to the Stealing of Medicine. Their goal is to identify those responsible for the shortage and the corruption networks that have benefited from it over the years.
According to a 2016 national survey about public health insurance, 24% of the people do not have enough medicine.
The president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, decided to concentrate all government purchases in the finance ministry, including medicines, for the entire health sector. That measure has caused shortages of some medicines due to the delay in the bidding process.
There was a delay in the purchase of medicines because they were trying to get a better price. Unfortunately, more than 97,000 people had real problems due to the shortage. For instance, our comrades in Tamaulipas are currently without antiretrovirals, and in Ciudad Juárez, people are receiving medicines only for 10 days.
The measure was useful to eliminate corruption, according to the president, who assured that the supply is guaranteed.
We have signed an accord with the UN to accompany us in all our medicines purchases, but at the same time, all the companies that sold us medicines are so ingrained in the country that it is difficult to find other ones. For instance, one of these companies is the only one that supplies us medicine for HIV, so I had to make an exception with that one. But we are looking for other companies to work with around the world.
According to a government audit, the health system is one of the most susceptible to embezzlement. The government of former President Enrique Peña Nieto had irregularities of more than $166 million.
We're taking one last break. Stay with us.
We have been present in all the events stirring our peoples. United for each transmission and in tune we bet on a new Latin American vision. Now we are also accompanied by the Caribbean people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Each day working for the best understanding and communication. Tell us more. A new source from South America and the Caribbean.
Welcome back. The death toll for the bomb, which exploded outside a major Sufi shrine in Lahore, Pakistan, has climbed to 10. Authorities say 5 police officers are among the dead, as a police van was the prime target. Officers have described the blast as a suicide attack. The responsibility for the explosion has been claimed by the Hizbul Ahrar, a local Taliban group.
We were going from here. As we crossed the road, a blast took place in front of us, and a piece of meat fell in front of us. We ran up towards the metro station. They asked us to rush, otherwise the metro might be closed. The blast sounded so big that we felt like our ears will burst.
Sudan's military has announced that it has reached an understanding with leaders of the opposition on the general structure of rule during the transition period. The announcement was made by the Transitional Military Council spokesperson with the leaders of the protest movement. He, however, pointed out that the military still had reservations on some of the issues submitted by the opposition, including the composition of a joint transitional council and the application of the Sharia law.
The document stipulates that the Council of Ministers shall be given the authority to declare a state of emergency, and this is a sovereign authority of the Council of Sovereignty. The document which was submitted to us hindered the sources of legislation. And our opinion is that the legislation in the Republic of Sudan will be based on the Islamic Sharia customs and traditions.
Russia is celebrating the 74th anniversary of Victory Day over Nazi Germany since the end of World War II, with a massive military parade on Moscow's Red Square. In the hours-long parade, over 13,000 troops marched through the iconic square. The parade also serves as a platform to showcase the latest Russian military hardware, including a new version of the Kalashnikov assault rifle. Other major Russian cities also held their parades to commemorate this day.
Эта песня на стихи Лебедева Кумача стала символом несокрушимой воли народа.
President Vladimir Putin held a moment of silence in memory of those who lost their lives during World War II. Putin also addressed a tribune with Soviet war veterans. He ensured the country will continue to invest in its military.
We have been doing and will do everything possible to ensure high battle readiness of our armed forces, the most modern level defense potential. We will further increase the prestige of the military service, the authority of soldiers and officers, the defenders of the fatherland. At the same time, Russia is open to cooperation with all those who are ready indeed to confront terrorism, neo-Nazism and extremism.
Minuta молчания.
And Russians also paid respect to fallen soldiers like they do every spring since the 1980s. Volunteers visited a hilly area near St. Petersburg to carry out digs at old battlefield sites and give the found remains a proper burial. Some 42,000 people carried out similar digs for remains of Soviet soldiers across the country. With that, we end our news brief, but you can read more on these stories by going to our website, telesurenglish.net. And be sure to also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.